Polly and I co-founded a campaign called Mission LifeForce towards the end of 2017. My background's in campaigning and activism, which I got into several years ago when I first discovered about fracking. Polly Higgins is a barrister. She's a UK barrister, and she actually gave up a very lucrative career at the bar when she realised that the client that really needed the good lawyer was actually the earth. There are currently a lot of civil lawsuits around the world in relation to climate breakdown and in relation to ecocidal activities, in terms of suing for damages or, negligence, all those things that are available to sue for in those arenas. But none of those things actually stop the harm. In a weird kind of way, suing is almost, it's not exactly, but there's a way in which it legitimizes it. You're saying you can do this, but then you have to pay for it. Actually, what we want is for them to stop. And for that to be done requires a crime. There's a document called the Rome Statute that governs international criminal law. It's the governing document of the International Criminal Court. About 2/3 of the world, essentially, is signed up to the Rome Statute. That document currently has the following crimes in its remit: war crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, and more recently added crimes of aggression. What our campaign aims to do is support the addition of ecocide as a standalone crime in that document, so making it effectively an international crime. What most people don't realise is that amending international law is actually a lot more straightforward than creating a new law, say in the UK. Any member state can put forward an amendment. Once that amendment is actually tabled, it can't be vetoed, which means that actually the little states who are suffering the most from climate breakdowns have every incentive to do this, and they also have the ability to do it. And because once you've got 2/3 of signatories, it becomes law, you don't actually have to have the big economies involved in order to make this into a law. The International Criminal Court works with the principle of something called universal jurisdiction, which means that even if you're not a member or you are a member but you haven't signed up to that particular law, if you are committing that crime and you set foot in a country that has subscribed to it, you could be arrested. So it has power even when a country isn't signed up to it. The other thing it does quite quickly is it starts to marginalise the polluters. Because actually, if you think about it, the countries with the most interest in putting a crime like this in place are going to be the exploited countries. So therefore, the exploiters are going to end up not able to exploit in those countries in that way. They're going to have to do it in their own backyards, which is going to become increasingly unpopular. So again, what you're creating is a kind of marginalisation and a steer even for those countries that don't originally sign up. So Mission LifeForce is quite a unique campaign in that it is based on a trust fund document. And when you sign up to Mission LifeForce and you put your funds in to support the process of those islands taking forward the amendment at the International Criminal Court, by legal definition, you are an earth protector by the fact that you're gifting funds into that trust fund. We've had that document rubber stamped legally in virtually every jurisdiction in the world, meaning it's been, the legal word is apostilled, which gives it a certain legal weight. And as far as we're aware, this is the first time this has actually ever been done. We all have the right to freedom of conscience. And that's a result of the conscientious objectors in the 20th century refusing to go to war. It was over decades that they actually kind of won the right to take this stance. The law was, I believe, changed in the 30s, and by the end of the 40s, we actually had the Universal Declaration of Human Rights being put in place, where that freedom of conscience was actually enshrined in law. So if you're standing up to protect your community and the earth from ecocide, and you are arrested as a criminal, you can use this document as the basis in court to put a different argument, to say, I am not a criminal, I'm a conscientious protector. In a sense, it's taking a step further. It's saying not only do I not want to be part of that harm, but I actually have to step in some way to help prevent it. And it could be that your way of doing that is to support with a gift the changing of the law. It could be, as it is with Extinction Rebellion, we need to sound the alarm. I need to put my body in the way to get the attention that this issue needs. You can say, I'm not a criminal, I'm a conscientious protector. Yes, I stood in front of the truck, but I'm not guilty. I'm not guilty because I was acting on my conscience on the basis of this information. And the court then needs to listen to that. Right. I mean, we have very key documents here, the IPCC report, we have the Paris Agreement signed in 2016. You know, we have these public domain documents that mean that this really isn't in dispute, in fact. We fully believe that sooner or later activists will be acquitted on this basis, because we know that there are members of the judiciary who understand this and who have a conscience themselves. And we also know that potentially in a jury trial you have more scope for, you know, a judgment that doesn't necessarily follow strict precedent. We haven't had any acquittals yet, but what we are finding is that when people are self-representing, even if at the end the judge perhaps wasn't prepared to push the boat out quite to the extent of acquitting the defendant, what we have had time and time again is the smallest possible fines and, you know, very lenient sentencing. So, you know, we're certainly finding that it's been proving to be a powerful approach. We feel it's hugely compatible with the Extinction Rebellion aims and demands, because effectively what Extinction Rebellion is doing in a really big way is sounding the alarm. And using the conscientious protector approach in court, you're doing that within the court system as well. You're actually exposing the court to that information of climate breakdown, which is really important. So that's very compatible. Extinction Rebellion also has a kind of agenda of not necessarily trying to get off, but actually trying to highlight something, and if necessary, going to jail to do so.